Good day, my name is Eugene Opperman, and today we'll be discussing difficulties that people have on completion of the maintenance application form, the so-called J101 form. My name is Eugene Opperman. I've been an attorney for the past 21 years, and I've experienced most of the difficulties that clients have encountered in maintenance courts. I have also established a Facebook group called Child Maintenance South Africa, where we assist mommies in completing maintenance forms and getting maintenance for themselves, claiming maintenance and the process. It also offers a support group for the people, for the mommies out there, and for them to pose questions on any maintenance related matters. Now, everybody is familiar with the J101 maintenance application form, which is quite a daunting form. Now, this form could be obtained from the Department of Justice's website. You can download it there, or you could simply get it at court. The maintenance clerk there or the maintenance officer will be able to assist you by giving you the forms that needs to be completed for you to start your maintenance process. I would urge you guys to download the form from the Department of Justice, and with the help of this tutorial and a PDF document which will be made available after this webcast, I urge you guys to fill it in beforehand instead of standing in long queues at the maintenance court waiting for assistance to complete this form. The form is quite self-explanatory, yet it's very daunting for most of the mommies because they simply do not understand how to do that, how to fill it in, and they do not know what is expected for them, what they need to fill into this blocks. That is why we will be running through the document step by step for you guys to establish how it needs to be filled in. Right, let's go to the form, and then we can have a discussion on exactly how to complete the form. If I can just get to the form. There we go. Right, this is the J101 form. You'll see at the top right, the top corner, it'll have a mark or indication that it is a J101 form. It's the application for maintenance order form. So let's run by how we should complete the form. First of all, you have the reference number. Now, this reference number you leave out. That is the reference number that the court would give you. That is your file number for your maintenance case. Each and every time that you need to correspond with a court, if you ask for an increase in maintenance, or if you report that is in default, or whatever the case might be, you use that file number. That reference number is your maintenance file number. You'll see that this document is explained or drafted as follows, that there is a block around a certain portion that needs to be filled in together with a corresponding comment. Now, this comment corresponds at the bottom in blue to certain things that needs to be filled in that certain comment. So right throughout this webinar, I will refer to you using comment number 1, and then just discuss what is featured under the blue, what needs to be filled in. So let's start with comment number 1. There it basically says that you fill in your full name. Remember, you are the complainant in this matter. You are lodging the complaint for maintenance, so you consider to be the complainant. You fill in your full details there, your complete name as it appears in your ID document. In this portion here, under comment number 2, you fill in your date of birth, which consists of the 2 digits of the day that you were born, the month, and then the last 2 digits would be the year, or you could simply fill in the number there that is your age. In this portion here, you need to copy your 13-digit ID number. Most of the courts would expect you to have a copy of your ID document ready in any event. So you need to fill that in this portion number here mentioned under comment number 3. This portion here, comment number 4, is the address where you stay. That is the address that will be used for you to go to court. That would be the address where you stay or where the child stays. If you are employed, this portion here needs to be filled in. Where you work, you fill in your complete work address there, together with a telephone number of your employer and where you work. On this side here, you fill in your own personal number, your cell number, or your mobile number that you might have where you could be reached. Moving on the form, you would find that there's a portion that needs to be filled in called nearest police station. That is the closest police station to where you live. Remember now that certain documents needs to be served upon you as the process go on. The clerk of the court or the maintenance investigator or even the police might come to you and say, right, here's documents, you need to be accorded a certain time and date. So they need to know what is the closest police station to where you live. Number one down here, this is where it gets a little bit more difficult. Here, it needs to be filled in the name of the defendant. Now, the defendant is the father. That's the person that is legally liable to pay maintenance. So that is the father's details. So put in these full names there. The courts might assist you if you only have certain portions of his name or not his full name, but at least you need to have the correct spelling of his surname for them to assist you. If you have his date of birth, you fill in the date of birth, first two digits, the day, then the month, and then the year. Or if you do not know his full date of birth, you can fill in his age there. Just remember, if you only know his approximate age, to write down there that it is approximate age. If you have his full ID number, you can fill in the 13-digit ID number in these blocks here. Most courts would expect you to give them some detail for them to trace the person. Tracing is usually done by the maintenance investigator, and if he does not have any details to go on, it would make their task immensely impossible for them to find the dad in this matter. So the ID number is very important. If you do not have the ID number, you could ask the court's assistance in tracing the father, which I said it's done by the maintenance investigator, but that might take up to a couple of months because most courts, if not all the courts, have maintenance investigators and they are overworked as it is. So they would probably get to your file only 9 months down the line. It might be a good idea to employ a tracing agent for them to get the details of the father. And then you can simply submit that tracing application form as proof of address where the documents could be served. You need to fill in the living details where the father lives. That's also important that you could get either from own knowledge where you know that he lives, or you could use a tracing report, or you can wait for that certain period of time for the maintenance investigator to assist you. If the father is employed, you can fill in the details here and his work telephone number if you have that. That is only now if you know that he's working. If he has his own business, you can also just put in the details that he is a director of his own business. You can put in that block there. Again, the telephone number of the father is also important. You fill in all the details, all the contact numbers that you have, because they might be able to trace him on the cell number or the landline number. If you know where he lives, then you can also fill in the closest police station to where he lives. You can fill in that portion under comment number 9. Just something to note is that most delays at court happens when you have the incorrect addresses, and as the court documents need to be served on the father. So if you don't have the correct address, that might be troublesome, and this would cause major delays at court. We have seen it many times where mommies had to wait up to 8 months just to get an address, and by the 8 months that they had to wait to get that address, in that time the father has already skipped his address or he changed his employment, and the process needs to start all over again. So my recommendation would be that if you have the means to employ a tracing agent, to get the details and then immediately submit the documents to court. The next portion, number 2 here, is just the reasons why the defendant or the father is legally liable to pay maintenance. Why should he pay maintenance? In this section here, you put in things like we were in a relationship and a child was born out of the relationship, or we were married for a certain period of time, or we had a sexual relationship and a child was born. That you need to put in there on the number 2. This portion here, the child mentioned in 4 below is under my care because. Now there you put in the reason why the child is in your care. So there you can say, I'm the only parent looking after the kids. They're living with me. I need to look after them. Whatever the case might be, you can fill into that block there. Number 3 here says that the defendant or the father has not supported the children since a certain date. If the father has never given you any money for maintenance, you just write there not applicable or never paid anything towards maintenance. If he has indeed made some payments towards maintenance, under comment 4, you can just stipulate there, he probably gave me 50 Rand here and 100 Rand there, but he has not been consistent in paying maintenance. You can just simply there make a note of how much he has contributed towards maintenance. Let's just scroll down. This is quite a contentious portion of the application form that actually does not make sense, because they brought it in here where it actually should have gone right at the bottom, right to the bottom of the application form. This section number 4, article number 4, you leave this section out completely. You leave that out for now. We will come back to this section right after we've completed the whole form, and that would make perfect sense to do it that way. But for now, you can leave this whole section, you can leave that out. As I said, we'll come back to that in a couple of minutes. As you scroll down, you come to a portion where it says assets. Now that is something that you need to complete. You need to complete and to say, what are your assets? Assets are things like fixed property. It might be investments. It might be savings. It could be shares. It could be a car or motorbike or whatever you own. That needs to be completed there. Now, fixed property is property that is registered on your name. It is not a rental property. A rental property we'll deal with later. But the fixed property is property that you are the registered title holder of. There you put the fair market value in. If you have any investments with Sanlam, Old Mutual, Capitec, or wherever, you can put that in. Savings, if you have a savings account, Capitec account, or whatever the case might be, you fill in more or less what are your savings. You can fill that in that portion mentioned under comment 3. If you have any shares, easy equities, whatever the case might be with regarding to shares, could be MTN shares, DSTV shares, you can put that in there. And there again, motor vehicles. If you are the registered owner of a motor vehicle, or a boat, or a caravan, or a motorbike, you put in the fair market value of the asset. You put in that column there. Remember now, if you have something like a vehicle, it's also handy to have a copy of that registration certificate ready so that you can submit that to court as proof thereof. Any other assets that you might have? Now, that could be things like jewelry, expensive piece of jewelry that is a value of 10,000 Rand or something like that. You can also include that on the other side, which might indicate which assets you have that has considerable value. Now we come to the income. Now the income you only complete if you have a income. If you are employed by someone or by a company, then you fill in this. Now this income resembles your payslip, what your payslip looks like. Now if you employed, like I said, you only fill it in when you're employed, your gross salary would be indicated on your payslip. You fill that in there. Then under your gross salary, you would see that there are certain deductions. It could be for tax. It could be mentioned as SARS or UIF, or whatever the case might be in terms of tax that you complete under comment number 2. Then there's medical aid contributions. If you can contribute to a medical aid or a pension fund, you indicate those in those columns set out in the form. Then you would get to your net salary. That's the amount that you get out. You need to type that in. If you have any other source of income, you need to stipulate that in this column here. And then afterwards, I'll get back to the other income right now. And then you just have to add those all up to get to your total amount of income. Now, let's go back to number 7. There it goes. If you have rental income, that needs to be placed in that column. If you have a SASSA grant, if you have disability grant, if you have any kind of interest that needs to get paid to you, say for instance, you loan someone money and you get interest before they pay out the loan amount, that needs to be put in there as another income. All right. Now we come to the expenditure column. Now, this is where most of the people struggle tremendously, how to calculate the expenditure, because now you have it on the form, you have expenditure for self and you have the expenditure for children and total, and most people don't know how to fill that in. The reason probably for that is that there is no indication on the form, no instructions on the form on how to complete that portion. Now it's actually very simple. Let me explain it to you. First of all, you have to establish how many people are there in the house. You count the number of people that are living in the house. You count how many adults there are, and you count how many children there are. Now that's children under the age of 18, right? And then each adult, you allocate a value of 2 shares. 2 shares for every adult, and then 1 share for every minor child. So a share value is allocated towards each and every person that is in the household. So let's look at the example. If it's only the applicant or you and the minor child, with other words, what we should do is firstly establish how many people in the house. There's 3 people in the house. It's mom and the daughter or the little minor child. Now we allocate the shares towards each of the people living in the house. Mom gets 2 shares and the child gets 1 share. So in total, there are 3 shares. 3 shares. So the child's portion, what the child needs to pay, that needs to be filled in this column, is 1 share over 3 shares. With other words, the child's expenses would be considered 1/3 of the total amount. So mom would fill in 2/3 under self, and the child will fill in 1/3, and there you get the total resembling the 3 shares. And that goes for each and everything listed on the expenditure list, be it rent, board, groceries, household expenses, money that you have to pay towards laundry, telephone, the domestic worker, clothing, whatsoever, you need to pay that. Let's explain that into a little bit more detail so that you understand. Here we have an example where there is a bond of 5,000 rand, and there's, what should we do? We should first establish how many people are there in the household. There's 1 parent, 1 adult, and 1 minor child. Then we allocate the shares. Shares towards 2 shares for each and every adult, 1 share for every child. So we've got 2 shares for mom, 1 for the minor child. So there's 3 shares. So everything needs to be divided by 3, and the child's portion would be 1/3. So if the rent or the bond is 5,000 rand per month, the child's expense would be 1/3 thereof. With other words, 1,666 rand. The mother's portion, because she gets 2 shares, would be 2/3 of the rent, which is 3,353 rand. So what would happen now is that 1,600, that amount there, would be allocated towards the child, and the amount of 3,300 would be allocated towards the child. And then the total would be added there as 5,000 rand. Simple. Let's have another example. Let me just move up a little bit. Okay. A mother is living with her grandmother and 2 children. children, two brothers. The two brothers are 15 and 19 years of age, which would mean that one of the children is considered an adult because he's over the age of 18. And there is one minor child. So you would have the one minor child, you've got Gogo there, you've got mother there, you've got one minor child, and then one adult child. So that is first, we need to establish how many people are living in the household. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 5 people living in the household. Then we allocate the shares towards each and every one. 2 shares for Gogo, 2 for mother, 1 for the minor child, 1 for the minor brother, and then 2 shares for the adult brother. So everything needs to be divided by 6. 2, 4, 6, 7, 8. Sorry, it needs to be divided by 8. So it needs to be, everything needs to be divided by 8. So this child's portion here would be 1/8. That portion of that child would be 1/8. That would be considered an adult. So the minor child's expenses of the grocery bill would then be 4,000 Rand divided by 8, which equates to 500 Rand. And that needs to be filled in under the child's portion there. Another example, a mother and her new boyfriend is living in a flat with a minor child, which would mean that the joint expenses would be divided by 5. How do we get to 5? We calculate how many people are in the household. There's 3 people in the household. We allocate the shares, 2 for the boyfriend, 2 for mom, and then 1 for the minor child, which equates to a portion of 5. So the child's portion would be 1 out of 5. And then you simply go on and complete the application form as it stands there. Remember now, you don't need to fill in each and every block thereof if it does not pertain to you. Lodging is quite straightforward. If you have a bond or payment, then you need to include that there. That is the total amount that you pay for accommodation on a monthly basis. Whether it is a bond, rent, or whatever, you just need to have that ready. Also, it's also a good idea to have your municipal account also ready to state that you are the owner of the property or that you rent. If you have a rental agreement, then have a copy of that ready as well. Next would be groceries. That is the common one. Do not use a thumb suck. Do not use a thumb suck figure and say it's just 5,000 Rand. Here is some homework for you to do. Try and get all the slips of everything that you spend for at least 1 month on groceries. Keep the slips. If it's at ShopRite, if it's at Woolworths, or wherever, get those. Take those slips, post it on or paste it, glue it on a A4 paper, make copies thereof so that you don't have papers lying around, and then calculate what are the expenses that you contribute monthly towards groceries for you and the child. And that's quite simple because that would actually prove that you spend that amount for groceries per month. Household expenditure. State your household monthly expenses, what that is linked to your residence. It could be things like electricity, it could be rates and taxes, it could be armed response, it could be the security, it could be internet, and laundry, everything to do with the household. Remember now, they also to split that between as per the formula that we just discussed a while ago on the child's portion towards the child, and then the parent's portion towards self. Same goes for clothing. And then we get to transport. Yes, transport, if you make use of public transport or a lift club, and you use that on a monthly basis, get some slips or get some proof that you pay that amount, because that could also be claimed as part of the maintenance. If you have your own car, your own vehicle, you can deduct there. You need to put in the installment and the insurance that you pay on the vehicle, the maintenance on the vehicle. Now that is just for the service and for the replacing of the tires and everything that you put under maintenance. That a person that deals with that could probably assist you with that. Fuel, if you have slips, you throw in fuel in your vehicle, in your car, then you can keep the slips just to say, right, this is the amount of fuel that I use per month. Licensing, your annual license fee that you need to pay towards your motor vehicle, you divide that by 12 in order to get a monthly expense, and you include that there, and you include the child's portion if the child is also benefiting from you of having a vehicle. Educational purposes of educational expenditures, quite self-explanatory. School fees, creche. If you have an insurance policy on the name of the child, you can include that there. Books, stationery, extramural, sports, and other school expenditure. Now, these are not compulsory fields. Only that is applicable to you, you can include that. If there is something else which is out of the ordinary, you can include that as well. Just draw a line through that and write down a special needs child, or whatever the case might be, and additional medical expenditure, or whatever the case might be, you can actually include there. Just draw lines through what is already there, if that is not applicable. Medical expenditure is also important because every child needs to go to a doctor at one stage or another if they are not on a medical aid. If they're on a medical aid, then that has been dealt with earlier in the document. Medical expenses for doctors that you need to pay out of pocket, and that is not covered by the medical aid, you can include here. If it's only for the child, you only put in the child's portion, under the child's portion. If it's for you, then you include that there as well. That also goes for medication and hospital expenses and any other medical expenses that you might incur on behalf of the child. If you have any insurance policies, that needs to go in there. Life policies, retirement annuities. If you need to pay homeowners insurance, that all needs to be included under this portion here. Like I said, everything is quite self-explanatory. They can, it's actually easy for you just to read through the captions, the comments at the bottom, in order to find out exactly what needs to be filled in. Next, we get to pocket money and allowances. Remember, now you don't get an allowance, so you don't fill in your portion. It's only for the child that needs to be filled in there. If you are regularly going on holidays each and every year, you can include that there as a portion. Maintenance of the house, household appliances, kitchenware, linen, towels. Like I said, you do not need to fill in each and every one of these. It could also be an estimate to say, you know what, I need to replace my blankets once a year. I need to replace pillows once a year. This is what it would cost. Get some slips as proof thereof. Remember, now it's up to you to prove your expenses. It's not up to the court to do that work for you. You need to go to court prepared to get all the documentation, get all the slips, and then go to court and say, but whoa, this is what I need. These are my expenses. These are my proof that I actually need that. Personal loans gets included there. Remember now, if it's a personal loan and it's a loan that it was not used for you to maintain the child, then it should only fall under you, and the child should not contribute thereto, because it's not the child's responsibility unless you had to take out a loan for maintenance purposes in order to buy food, pay for the rent or whatever, then it might be included. Security alarms, point number 13, security alarms, that could be included. Any membership fees and any other religious contributions or towards charities, or even the church can go there. If you go to church and you give your money to the church, or you give a certain percentage to the church, then that could be included there as well. Point number 16, gifts. If you spend for gifts, now that's just gifts for the minor child going to a party and you need to give a gift to them, to give to the other person, then that could be included in the maintenance claim as well. Then there's a portion under 21. If there is anything else that you pay per monthly towards maintenance that has a direct influence on the minor child, then that should be included in portion number 21, question number 21 here. You have to fill in what do you pay per month, and then divide it, as I said, proportion, 2 shares for the adult, 1 share for the child. You work that out, and that needs to be filled in under this section here. Right. At the end of the day, there is a portion that you need to sign, signature of complainant. But remember now, this document needs to be filled in front of, or completed in front of, a commissioner of oaths as being the truth and correct. So the details that's contained in this J101 form needs to be legally correct. Otherwise, you could find yourself guilty of perjury. Now, perjury is something that they can lock you up for lying under oath. So make sure that all the details that you put in this document are correct, and that you actually have proof of everything that has been stated on this form. So don't sign this form yet, because you'll need to go to a police station, or they could do it at court probably for you as well, where they would do the oath just to fill in this portion, and you need to sign in front of them. Now remember, now with this form, you think now we're at the end of the form. Actually, we're not, because we left out a certain portion. We left out portion number 4. Portion number 4 now makes sense, because if you go back, let me just scroll back a little bit. Right at the end of portion number 21, section number 21, there is, you calculate all the list, everything where it says self. You calculate the total expenditure there, and you include the amount there. For the children, exactly the same, and the total. That amount you'll use in the portion, or the section number 4 later on. Now let's go to that section number 4 that I explained about. So what you have to do now is to calculate all the amounts that you've indicated in the children column. Remember, now you calculated all those, and make double sure that you've added all the amounts correctly. It might take you a while, but do that again. Do it 2 or 3 times and make certain that you have calculated and added everything. Now you have the total amount that is needed for maintenance for the children. So you would have the total amount that's needed each and every month. So for example, you need a total amount of 2,000 Rand per month. And now you're ready to complete this section. But now first, you have to see how much child needs to be awarded to each and every, how much money needs to be awarded to each and every child. So if you have 4 children, you write down the names of the children, and you divide that 4,000 Rand, the total amount, you divide by each child, so that you can actually ask the court to say, you know what, I want 500 Rand to go to Bongani, to Sipho, to Nhlangla, or whoever. So you add that there. So that total amount of 500 Rand per child would amount to the 2,000 Rand. That would be the total amount that you wanted for child maintenance as total expenditure. Let's just scroll down. And then in the form we need at the end, you can also request the court to say the first payment of maintenance should be done on a certain date, and thereafter each and every month. All payments this year, it's also important that you need to fill in, all payments should be made to you or to the court. But it might be a good idea for them to make the payment directly to you. Otherwise, you still have to stand in court to get your money for that. Very important in this section here, that's the section under section 4, is other contributions that, for example, might include medical and dental costs, school fees, fees for tertiary education, school wear, expenses for sports, extramural activities, everything else that you want on the maintenance order. This needs to be included here. Now, we found that so many mommies insist on winter and summer clothes or Christmas clothes. This is the portion where you include that. Apart from the amount that you want for maintenance under the section 4 that you just completed, you fill in there, I want R1,000 for winter clothes, and he needs to pay on that day that amount. For summer clothes, on that day, that amount. For Christmas clothes, that day, that amount needs to be paid, so that everybody else and you, the court, and the respondent or the father would know what amounts to be paid. You can also ask there that the maintenance, and that's also included in this portion, that the maintenance includes an increase percentage per annum. And there you could ask the court for an increase of 5 or 8% per annum on a certain date. This is just one of those things that needs to be included. And it's wise to include that, to say that on a specific date, the amount of maintenance would increase by a certain percentage, because that would mean that you do not need to go to court for a variation of the court order, stand in queues and go through the whole process. Now, if the order has been granted, it simply states that on, say for instance, the 15th of May, the maintenance amount needs to increase by 15%. Then the father would know that the amount would need to be increased on a certain day in a certain amount. We've coming to the end of our session. It was quite a longer session. I did not realize it was going to be so long. I hope you've found this helpful. Visit our website and visit also our Facebook group. We are also on YouTube. Visit there for more videos that we would post probably twice a week. We also foresee that we would have interviews with senior prosecutors. We would interview maintenance personnel. We would have tutorials similar to this, explaining the whole process in easy terms, and all documents will obviously be made available on our website. So if you like that, please like our Facebook page, and yes, we'll see you soon.